For anyone that knows me, you're probably tired of the amount of times I talk or post about coffee. When I land in a new city, I'm always looking for a good coffee shop. When I'm working on assignments before class, I'm in a coffee shop. They're the ultimate blend of community, productivity, and culture. With so many of them closed right now, I've been making coffee at home, and I thought I'd share the tools and the process I use to do that. I've got 3 single origin coffees in rotation right now, a Kenyan from Brandywine Coffee Roasters, an Ethiopian from Wilderness Coffee, and another Ethiopian from Say Coffee in Brooklyn. Typically, Kenyan coffees are my favorite since they're typically really bright, but this one from Say is the best I've had from Ethiopia. The packaging is also very well done with information about the region, the tasting notes, and the climate that the coffee was grown in. I use a few different brewing techniques, but my daily routine involves a Chemex. It's a brewer, a carafe, and aesthetically pleasing addition to any kitchen. In fact, there's one on permanent display at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. The first thing I do is boil water. I'll leave affiliate links to everything I mentioned down in the description, but the kettle I use is from Bonavita. I've got it connected over Wi-Fi through a HomeKit enabled switch, so when I'm ready to boil water, I can just tell Siri to do it for me, or use Control Center on my phone. Now that the water's boiling, I measure out the beans. This can be done with any scale that measures to the 1/10 of a gram, but this one's from Hario, and you can find similar ones on Amazon or in most stores. I use the collection bin from my grinder, which I'll talk about in a minute, to hold the beans since it's clean and it only houses coffee. Let's measure out 30 grams of these beans. The next step is to grind them. Doing this right before brewing gives the cup a freshness to the taste that can't be had from older pre-ground coffee. My usual coffee to water ratio varies, but somewhere between 1 to 15 and 1 to 17 is usually a good idea. For these beans, I've been using 30 grams of coffee to 500 grams of water. I've been using this Baratza Encore grinder for a couple years, and it's worn over time, but it still works well. It's had 40 different grind sizes, and I've custom tuned it, so right around 30 is the place where I get the best results. If you buy one off the shelf, you may have different results depending on how new or worn it is. When brewing in a Chemex, you want to get a fairly coarse grind, similar to sea salt. And once this is ground, I'll put the filter in the Chemex. I prefer these natural filters, which I have linked below, but there are plenty of other options. Just make sure that the 3 folds of the filter mesh with the pouring spout. This spout prevents pressure from building up in the lower half, and after the water's boiled, I'll pour a little bit over the filter just to get rid of any papery taste. After it drips through this filter, the water can be discarded, and once this is done, we can pour in our grounds and tare the scale. Tearing or zeroing out, just make sure everything is even, so we have a timer of 0 and a weight of 0 to get started. The first step in brewing is called the bloom. This is the initial pour of water over the fresh grounds. Blooming results in bubbles coming up to the top and releasing gases that are in the coffee. I usually give it about 45 seconds, but depending on the amount of coffee, your bloom time may vary. For this one, I poured 100 grams of water on, just enough to fully wet the grounds, but not completely overdo it. For the next pass, I'll add more water, moving in a circular motion and hitting any darker spots. I've seen some other people stir their pour-overs, but I haven't found that to be beneficial, at least for me. This process takes about 3 to 4 minutes, depending on the amount of coffee you're using, and I'll keep adding water, making sure the bed of grounds is never completely dry. Once we hit about 500 grams, I'll stop pouring and wait for a slow drip, and once it's almost done, I'll remove the filter and discard it. I found that pulling the filter before the drip finishes results in a much cleaner cup. Give the Chemex a swirl and pour it into a cup. I've really been enjoying this one from Kanzo. It's a Hasami porcelain mug from Japan, and it's got a really unique texture. You can see on the Chemex that there is a small dimple near the bottom. This is said to be the half full mark. The bottom of that collar is the max fill capacity, and I was using a 6-cup model for this video, but there are plenty of other sizes and variants that may be more suitable for different amounts. Hopefully you found this helpful, and if you'd like to see other videos on how I brew with an AeroPress, an espresso machine, V60 or otherwise, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this.